Nick, what's your New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution stays with the old team with the Bulls on the car. We're not talking about V-Carb, although he has a part in it.
I was about to say RB has Bulls on the car.
We're talking about Red Bull Racing. And we are talking about the guy who puts his foot in his mouth more than anybody else on the grid. Helmut Marko, your New Year's resolution, shut the hell up for once. Just shut up.
Indefinitely.
Bite your tongue.
I feel like his New Year's resolution should just be Helmut Marko. Stop it. Stop it.
Stay out of the cat box.
Stay out of the cat box.
And speaking of getting the party started.
For the victory lap though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I stress overcome, what for? Train in the trees, please pardon my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands and stormy shore seasons in the year. Switch gears, with keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat and tears and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a J, we break through. 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 It's a J, we break through.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the only podcast in the world that combines two of the greatest sports leagues around, that being the NFL and Formula One. It's the Gridiron Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sean Barie, and if you've listened to us before, if you've watched us before, you're probably thinking, Sean, this isn't your normal boisterous, loud opening to draw us in. And you'd be right, because this is our New Year's episode as we record on January 7th, 2025. So happy New Year's to you. But my New Year's resolution is to be more calm, have a more professional demeanor to my existence. And I'm kidding. Welcome to episode 58 of the Gridiron Podcast. It's so
Who are you?
Back. We've had 2 weeks off, guys. I am Sean Barie. I was not kidding about that part. And as always, if you're watching us on YouTube or on Twitch, up in the left-hand corner, the bald behemoth, holding down the fort in the land, Nick Shook. And definitely not to be confused with Nick Shook in any way, shape, or form. Up in the right-hand corner, our Canadian queen, Katie Caldwell. Guys,
hello,
happy
friends.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes. We've had the last 2 weeks off because, well, you were just sick of each other and also because, the holidays. So a happy New Year to you.
It.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, how can you get sick of somebody virtually? Like, it's not like we're around each other. It's not like you're visiting and, day 4, you've overstayed your welcome. We do this for an hour, once a week.
Some would say an hour too long, but I digress.
Don't ask them whether they're sick of me in the group chat or not, because that is always popping. Whether we take a week off of the pod or not, the group chat doesn't take a
Yes, the group chat. We never take a week off from the group chat. We don't take an hour off from the group chat usually. I'll wake up and there's 10 messages, and I still went to bed at 2 a.m. I'm like, what are you guys doing all night?
Time zone.
We're night owls.
Exactly.
Yeah, we are.
So am I. We got a lot to get into this week because, as I said, we combine our two loves, the NFL and Formula One. We're going to start with the NFL this week, talking about Super Wild Card Weekend. Are we still?
Nope. It's not Super anymore.
Not Super?
Nope. They got rid of Super. It's just Wild Card Weekend again.
So it's just Wild Card Weekend now.
R.I.P. to Super Wild Card Weekend.
We hardly knew you. Let us have a moment of silence for Super Wild Card Weekend. Okay, that's enough. It's Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. We're going to go through Nick's rapid reactions, our resident NFL.com talent writer. He's going to give us his reactions to these Wild Card Weekend playoff matchups. We're going to give our predictions for this weekend. We got a fun little game involving, well, I don't know if it's fun if you're a Browns fan, but it's fun for us, involving the Browns' now infamous quarterback jersey growing in one more name over the weekend. And then we'll transition into Formula One and talk some New Year's resolutions for our favorite drivers and teams. Guys, you ready?
Always. Never more.
Let's start off, as we normally do, Nick's Rapid Reactions, episode 58 of the Gridiron Podcast. And again, we are going to go over these playoff matchups. Starting in the 4:30 slot on Saturday, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers holding down the 5 seed, traveling to Houston to play one of the shakier teams in the NFL right now, and the Houston Texans. Nick, your rapid reaction, Nick.
First of all, can we talk about the Texans forever being in that Saturday 225 spot?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
West of us
Aren't they
lives
like
on.
8 for 8 in that spot? I don't think they've ever played not in that awful time slot. Anyways, go on. But I think
No, you're right. I always feel,
it goes to show that the league's like, all right, Texans, you made the playoffs. Cool. Like in the past, it was like, oh, Ryan Mallett's playing quarterback today. Brock Osweiler's playing, like whoever it was.
I can't wait to see Matt Schaub.
Tom Savage. Like, of course you're going to get thrown in that Saturday slot. Last year it was like Joe Flacco and the Browns. Like, sneaky, like good matchup that ended up being a blowout. But no, my reaction to this, the Chargers are on fire. They are playing great football. They dominated the Patriots a couple weeks ago. Their offense has opened up. Lad McConkey's going off. Quentin Johnston had a career high day in week 18. Justin Herbert's slinging it all over the field. They've really looked a lot better since they got J.K. Dobbins back, and that defense still plays physical football. So, I mean, I guess my reaction is that I like this matchup for the Chargers. I mean, are we going to predict while we do these reactions too? Because
go for it. Why not? I mean,
all right, we'll throw right in there. We'll go to this one then. The Texans beat the Titans, and that's no achievement. I still don't feel great about them. CJ Stroud played for a little bit. Davis Mills handled the rest of it and looked like a good backup. I just don't have a lot of reason to be confident in the Texans right now. It pains me because me and Katie's Super Bowl pick was Texans-Lions. And now I'm not going to see Katie at the Super Bowl, and I'm probably not going to see the Texans in the Super Bowl. So, disappointment abound, but I like the Chargers in this one.
Salt in every wound. You're not going to the Super Bowl. You're not going to the Super Bowl. Sean probably isn't going to the Super Bowl. We can
probably
hope.
Not. I submitted my credential if it helps. We can hold out hope. So, I'll have a credential. You can pick it up for me, Nick, and just send me a picture of what could have been.
I mean, you want to picture the hotel room too, like last year?
Yeah, exactly. That sounds dirty. Katie, your prediction?
I like the Chargers in this one.
Yeah.
Nick summed it up. Their whole game this year was meant to be the run game, and now they get J.K. Dobbins back. They just look different again. I love that I saw a quote, unrelated, but I bring a lot of the vibes and a lot of the X's and O's to this. But did you guys see that Justin Herbert was talking about Jim Harbaugh, and he's like, I knew he was different when he said that he remembers being born. I read that. I was like, man.
What do you say to that if you're a player all right, coach.
I wish he wasn't such a good football head coach because, what a wild human. I still have not liked Jim Harbaugh any more than I did heading in. Everybody knows I'm a pretty noted Harbaugh hater. But yeah, I saw that. I was like, man, I don't know if I want the Chargers to go on any further.
I remember being born.
What that's an Aaron Rodgers-esque thing to say.
We're going to get Jim Harbaugh. Netflix season 2.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That was a big takeaway for me today, Chargers-wise. But yeah, I like the Chargers in this one. The Texans just they kind of are there because someone had to win that division. I didn't feel overly inspired by that team this year. They had bright spots, and losing Nico Collins was hard for most of the season, and it just didn't look quite the same as what we thought. Obviously, like Nick said, we had them Super Bowl prediction, but who knows? Playoffs are wild though, man. Weird shit happens.
Texans haven't lived up to their hype this year, and you see what happened on Christmas Day, where the Ravens just absolutely ran roughshod over them. At the same time, the Chargers, I mean, they couldn't handle, they got blown out by Baker Mayfield and the Bucs at home. Was that a one-off? Yeah, probably. I'll take the Chargers in this one as well. Following that up, we've got the 8:20 game, or the 8 o'clock game on Saturday night, hiding one of the best rivalries in the NFL on Prime Video. But at least we get to hear Al Michaels' voice. It's the Steelers traveling to Baltimore. Go ahead and break my heart, Nick.
Well, this is the moment that Sean starts to get very uptight because, in case you haven't been following the NFL over the last month, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a rut. They have lost 4 in a row. They have not scored more than 17 points in any of those losses. And they just lost to the Ravens a few weeks ago in a game that snowballed against them in the fourth quarter. Baltimore is another team that's on a hot streak. They can get pretty much whatever they want offensively right now. Derrick Henry running through defenses, Lamar Jackson passing through defenses. Zay Flowers is injured and may not play in this game, which is a concern, but the state of the Steelers offensively right now has Sean ready to fire their offensive coordinator for a second year in a row. Yep. So that tells you all you need to know about where Pittsburgh stands right now. I don't like to go against Mike Tomlin, but in this matchup between familiar teams, I've seen too much from the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. and company, and a defense that has come together better in the back half of the season. That win over the Browns doesn't prove anything to me. It's more about the games before that to believe that the Baltimore Ravens will win over the Steelers again and advance to the divisional round.
Sean, don't make me
Katie?
do it.
Okay, fine. I'll go.
No,
past
I'll
couple
get it
years, the
over
Steelers-
with. I'll rip the Band-Aid off for you. I'm obviously going to take the Ravens. I just didn't want you to
Oh,
have to
yeah.
hear
The
twice
background's
before
purple, for God's sake.
you.
I'll take the Ravens too, because the last couple of years the
Whoa.
Steelers have snuck into the playoffs, and like, let's be fair, they have snuck into the playoffs or barely gotten in like they did this year, losing their last 4 games of the regular season. Couple of years ago, it was the Chiefs and Big Ben's last year. Then last year, it was at the Bills with Mason Rudolph. And this year, it's at the Ravens. If you were to ask me which of those games I felt best about, I mean, it would be this one, just because weird things happen when the Steelers and Ravens play each other. Even weirder things seem to happen to the Ravens in the playoffs. Like, let's be honest, their playoff record isn't squeaky clean as of late. So I have some optimism, but no, I would pick the Ravens in this one too.
Ravens are just different this year.
Yeah.
They're so
Well, we said that last
elevated.
year and the year
But
before.
I think they've even elevated from last year. Like, this is the best Ravens
Sure.
team I remember in a long time. Lamar's playing out of his mind.
They might
Derrick
not
Henry
have Zay
doesn't
Flowers,
even throw
though.
hair. They're so complete
I know.
around that. Like, Russell Wilson is a problem.
He is. Yeah.
I just
that 2-minute drive against the Bengals. I mean, I was like, oh, here we go. Like, we're down 2 with 2 minutes left, and like, we're gonna win this game. All we need is to get Chris Boswell in field goal range, and
yeah.
Russell Wilson with no timeouts. You know, keeping the ball in bounds. Like, what are you doing? Or did you study at the school of Matt Eberflus clock management? What are you doing, Russ? Like, you're a veteran in this league. You're a Super Bowl champion. How do you not know how to manage the clock in a 2-minute drill?
It was a rough
I
one.
wouldn't
It was
mind if
kind
we
of
saw
giving.
some Justin Fields, honestly.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields.
Don't give me that look, Nick.
Nick, you don't think so?
That's so desperate. I mean, I could see him in a running package, but that's so desperate.
Aren't they
Like,
desperate,
Look at me,
though?
Nick. Look at me right now. I am desperate.
I can see
We
that.
all
I'm
are,
just glad
Nick.
you admit it. No, I'm fine to watch the Steelers march to the offseason this weekend. It's cool with me.
It's fine.
Frauds.
They are. Sunday matchup starting up. We got Denver taking on Buffalo, the old 7-2 matchup at 1 o'clock on CBS.
Denver Broncos needed to win in Week 18 to get to the playoffs. Luckily, they faced the weakest team in recent memory, aka the
Quick
Chiefs
aside,
playing
quick aside.
all their backups.
Quick aside. Did Denver win that game, or did the Chiefs play the ultimate chess move by keeping the Bengals and Joe Burrow out of the
Well,
playoffs?
if you ask Sean McVay, you can't duck anyone this time of year. So you could ask that question.
I don't
and
know. I mean,
maybe you're
the
right.
Chiefs did a really good job of ducking the Bengals.
And maybe you're right, but honestly, I mean, there's nothing to take away from that game. Like, the Broncos won. They were handed a win, and they won. They took care of business. The Dolphins stumbled and fell flat on their face, which is hilarious because that just captures their entire season in a nutshell. And the Bengals won and then didn't get the help they needed because they buried themselves too much. So what we get is a Broncos team that's played good football as of late, a bit inconsistent. You know, Bo Nix has not been quite as good as he was when people started throwing his name out there for Offensive Rookie of the Year and got in my mentions. And they were like, why isn't Bo Nix atop your list? Well, because he's still Bo Nix. They lost their last 2 games before this one. They lost to the Bengals in overtime. They lost to the Chargers by a touchdown. But they got this one done. How do I feel about them? It feels like getting there is a win. This is a team that had been in the playoffs since they won the Super Bowl. But I'm also not a fan of moral victories. The Bills have not played good football as of late. You know, they beat the Patriots a few weeks ago, but it was pretty close. They took them to the brink. They dominated the Jets with a game that was uncharacteristic of the Bills. They didn't really have to throw for 300 yards. They just did everything well. Their best win since their bye week has been over Detroit, which was a landmark victory in mid-December. And then there's nothing to take away from Week 18 because Mr. Trubisky was playing. So I still like the Bills, but I could see an avenue in which they play poorly and the Broncos are in this. And that's what makes this game intriguing to me. It's kind of a gross matchup on paper, like Broncos versus Bills, just visually gross, but I could see this getting interesting. I'm still going to go Bills, though.
Are we all
I'm
going
gonna
to agree with
say,
that? Yeah.
I'm leaning Bills, but I'm not sure with this one. I think this one could be based on just expectation alone, like the Broncos aren't expected to do anything in the postseason, and the Bills absolutely have expectations this year. They have for a few years, and they keep not necessarily reaching where they want to go. There's a lot of ways this game could go. Bo Nix isn't playing as well. You said that, Nick, but man, like him and Cortland Sutton have something, and like they can kind of torch you in the right moment. And like I think there can be a world where all of a sudden they're up 14-0 and the Bills are kind of scrambling and Josh Allen has to do a bit more. Like, I don't know. This one could be interesting. I'm still leaning Bills, but I almost kind of want to say Broncos just because it feels like this could be a game where weird shit happens.
Say it.
Don't make me say it. No, because I love Josh Allen and I love the Bills, but like, I don't know. My gut is kind of saying that something weird might happen in this one.
I think this is the game where something weird might happen just because, like you said, no one's expecting the Broncos to do anything. Like, they barely got in there. Like, I'm not comparing, excuse me, I'm not comparing Bo Nix to Tim Tebow, but remember that Broncos team that like randomly won that division back in like 2011, and it's like, hey, the Steelers are going to just slap Tim Tebow and the Broncos down. The next thing we know, first play of overtime, you know, it's over. So, I mean, I'm not saying the Broncos are going to beat the Bills, but like, you're right. Not much is expected of them. And I think even Sean Payton was quoted like lately saying like, you know, we're young and we're hungry. Like, I get it. Yeah, this is a team that is on the rise. I see what they're trying to do there. No one expected them to be here so quickly, but they are. And so they might be a problem for the Bills. I'll still take the Bills, though. But you're right. I can see a world where we're talking about Denver, you know, going off to play in Kansas City.
They've got a good coach. They've got some guys on defense. Like, they can make stuff happen.
Absolutely. Next up,
I just wish I had the picture of Sean Tebowing on campus in college.
Yes, it's somewhere on Facebook. I'm wearing a Penguins jersey in that one because Tebowing was cool back then, kids.
Was it, Sean?
No, it never was. Next up, we've got the old 7-2 matchup in the NFC. The Packers traveling up to Philly, where we don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to play or not. So will it be Kenny Pickett leading the Philadelphia Eagles against the Packers? Green Bay's down Christian Watson. He tore his ACL, so he's done for the season. The coulda, shoulda, woulda bowl?
I guess. The Packers being the 7 seed feels weird, but their record fits. Like, they feel like an 11-6 team. They have not played good football lately. And I don't like to use recency bias as like the only basis of my judgment, but they lost that game against the Vikings, which they really weren't in it. The final score lies to you. They mounted a late comeback effort, but it was like too little too late. They lose to the Bears in a game which they like can't move the ball. And that's with Jordan Love in the game. Like, they had most of their starters in, and they still didn't look very good. The Bears from that game, despite totaling 224 yards of offense, but it's not the way you want to go into the playoffs. So it really hurts my confidence in the Packers, who a few weeks ago I thought were the team that nobody wanted to play in the playoffs. But Jalen Hurts potentially not playing throws a bit of a wrench into this and opens the door for more weirdness, like we just described with the Broncos and the Bills. Tanner McKee looked pretty solid. Kenny Pickett, good enough against Washington the week prior. Threw some accurate passes that were dropped in that loss to the Commanders. I think the Eagles are the more complete team. I think their defense can win this game. I think Saquon Barkley can win this game. So I'm leaning Eagles. The Eagles, actually, if they get Hurts back, I like them to win the whole conference right now. I know it sounds crazy because it's the 2 seed and it's like, okay, well, it's the 2 seed. You're not really going out on a limb. But when you look at the rest of the conference, you look at the Lions and the Vikings, people aren't really looking at the Eagles. I kind of like them as a sneaky favorite. So I'm going to take them to win this game.
Yeah,
plenty.
Everyone I know is talking about the Eagles.
I was about to say, like, if I had to pick a team right now to come out of the NFC, that would probably be my pick if they're healthy.
Damn it.
Yeah, mine would be like Detroit or Philadelphia, like over Minnesota for sure.
Yeah,
and
especially
I thought that heading into that game.
Yeah. I'm taking the Eagles to win this one, especially if Jalen Hurts is back. Not having Christian Watson, you know, the Packers' deep ball threat, that hurts them a lot. And you're right, honestly, just looking like it's the eye test. The Packers, they look great early. They have not looked good as of late to end the season. So I'll take the hotter team with the Eagles because I'm not going to bet against Saquon Barkley. And then we got the primetime game on Sunday.
Wait, Katie, did you want anything to say there?
Not particularly. I would
Sean
love
just runs right over you.
But I would love for Kenny Pickett to have a bit of a Carson Wentz moment where when Carson Wentz was out.
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles. That's the name it's going to be.
You want him to tear his ACL?
No. But if Jalen Hurts can't play, I would kind of like to see Kenny Pickett kind of like because the team is complete around him. I'm not going to sit here and say they have a good coach because I'm not a big Nick Sirianni fan, but I like the rest of the coaching staff because we still don't really know what Nick does. But yeah, I think that would be kind of cool to see Kenny Pickett just swing through the playoffs with a really good team.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Madden is in the chat. He is a noted Eagles fan, and he says, "Fly Eagles, fly, baby." Actually, fly Eagles, fly, baby.
Baby.
Hi, Madden. Good luck to your team. All right, now you can proceed, Sean.
Okay, proceeding to the primetime matchup Sunday night. We've got the old 6-3 matchup down here in Tampa, Florida. It's the Commanders and Bucks rematch of their season opening game between that, which the Bucks won handily. But that was Jaden Daniels' first start in the NFL, and he ran into a Todd Bowles defense. I will say though, like both teams are so different from here on out, from week one, right? The Bucks found a running game. They found a good starting running back. And the Washington Commanders found out that they have the best young rookie quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I take nothing from that game.
Not at all.
The only thing I took from it was that Jaden Daniels looked comfortable enough to lead this offense, and then we saw the next 17 weeks back that up. He's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. The Commanders have a lot of voodoo magic on their side. They keep winning these last-second games. I've heard "Do you believe in miracles?" called by their broadcast team at least twice this season, if not 3 times, including last Sunday when they came back to beat the Cowboys. Marcus Mariota throwing at Terry McLaurin with just 2 seconds left for the game-winning touchdown. So, Sean, I know this is the team you cover, but I think this is the most intriguing matchup of the entire weekend.
I agree. I agree.
And I am going to ride the hot hand, and I'm going Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn's slightly improved defense and Cliff Kingsbury, who's getting more head coaching looks again, whose sunglasses hot, just so we get that clear. Commanders over the Buccaneers. Katie.
I like the Commanders in this one too. Sean, you'd have a better idea of this, but I feel like Baker Mayfield looks like he's playing hurt. Like he just does not look the same right now. And I had texted the group chat about this. Like Baker's kind of playing like trash right now. And then as soon as that happened,
I was about to say, what happened right next?
Which I feel like, you're welcome, Bucks fans. I feel like I made that happen because I was just trashing him right before that sequence went down. But he doesn't look quite the same because we've seen like a properly dialed in Baker Mayfield. I love what he's been doing in Tampa, but it just looks like he's playing hurt right now and the offense doesn't look the same. I kind of like the Commanders in this one. I want to see Jaden Daniels move on. I just want to see what they can do. I love what Dan Quinn's done with that team. I just love the whole operation.
I will say that this is the most interesting matchup, honestly, because I feel like I could, flip a coin with this one. It really is 50-50. Yep. Sure, they played week one, but I mean, everybody that's been asked, Todd Bowles, Baker Mayfield, Liam Cohen, look, I take nothing from that first game because we're two completely different teams. Like I said, we didn't know down here that Bucky Irving was going to be this, stud running back, 18 weeks later. They didn't know, or they probably knew that Jaden Daniels was going to light the world on fire. Here they are. This should be the most fun game to watch on paper. I think it's all going to hinge on kind of like what you said, Katie. Which Baker Mayfield are we going to get? Because I don't have any trust in this Bucs defense right now. I mean, they've looked just absolutely horrible at times, and they're so banged up. Like Antoine Winfield Jr. is down. Christian Izien is on the IR. Jamel Dean is dealing with a knee injury. Jordan Whitehead, who just came back from IR, got into a car accident. His season is over. Like, this defense cannot catch a break. That being said, they were letting Spencer Rattler throw all over them in the first half on Sunday, and then they kind of settled down and made some adjustments there in the second half. So I don't have any faith in the defense, so I know Washington is going to get theirs. It's going to be what Baker Mayfield shows up. Is he going to throw the turnover, the interception at the inopportune time, which he did against the Saints in the first half? What's going to happen here? So it's going to be interesting. And because of that, I almost want to roll with the Commanders as well. Like, I see more avenues. I see more paths to victory for the Commanders than I do for the Bucs. Because let's be clear. Yes, they've won their last 2 games. Didn't look great. They did look great beating up on the Panthers. Sorry, I messed that one up. Yeah, they absolutely just slapped around the Panthers. Didn't look great in a division clinching game against a team that had nothing to play for on Sunday in the Saints. lose to the Cowboys in just an embarrassing fashion.
Ugh.
They've been very up and down lately. I don't think
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's hurt at all. I mean, or who isn't at this time of the season, but I think he's made some bad plays, and then he's made some really good plays that has kept this team in the game. So it's going to hinge on Baker. Honestly, I'm gonna say that it's going to hinge on Baker. You got to get Mike Evans open. You got to get Jalen McMillan involved, and you got to get Bucky Irving involved.
I'm
So
going to say this. I think that this is going to be a high-scoring affair because
I
I
think
don't
so
have
too.
I
a
think so too.
ton of confidence in Washington's defense, and the Buccaneers are an offensive team.
I will also say I believe this might be the coldest game that the Buccaneers have played in all season long.
Oh,
If anybody wants to look up the weather in East Rutherford, New Jersey on November 24th, I don't know if it was colder. It might be because, New York around Thanksgiving, it's probably pretty chilly, but didn't look too chilly on TV. But it is going to be in the mid to low 40s Sunday night down here in Tampa Bay. So I will be bundled up on the sidelines as I'm covering this game because that's going to be cold
their
for me.
defense. I get their defense is really banged up, but it makes me look at a team like Detroit, where you see what Aaron Glenn does with a defense where you lose this guy and then you lose this and this and this, and there's still such a strong unit. And then you because we're not going to talk a lot about the Lions this week because they're not playing,
Right.
but it just makes me so much more impressed with what Aaron Glenn is able to do with that team, because their defense doesn't look shaken whatsoever, no matter who they lose, which is, isn't Aiden Hutchinson still the sack leader, which is so wild.
Yeah.
But so many teams look like the Bucs where you lose guys and then it just looks like a fundamentally different defense. And it just, like, when I see those situations, it makes me look at the Lions with even more admiration with what they're doing this season.
Ever since that Detroit game was like a masterpiece in Todd Bowles defense, and ever since then it's just kind of been like all downhill. Like, hey, even when they were down Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and their best two receiving options were Cade Otton and Ryan Miller, it was, we need the defense to save us, and they couldn't. They literally for like 3 straight weeks put the game in their defense's hands, and their defense just buckled every single time. So I believe, Nick, you're right. This is gonna be a high scoring game. So shootout between Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels. I'm excited. Again, not for the cold, though. And then last one, Monday night matchup, Minnesota taking on the Rams. This should also be a fun one, I think.
These two teams played, but it feels like, at least to me, ages ago. It was way back in week 8 before Halloween had even arrived. They lost 30-20 to the Rams. There was a controversial face mask that was missed in the end zone. On a Sam Darnold sack that dominated the airwaves afterward. But what people fail to realize is that the Rams outplayed the Vikings in that game. The Vikings have only lost 3 games this year, 2 to Detroit and 1 to the Rams. And who do they play right after they just lost a game? The other team they lost to, the Rams in the playoffs. They go on the road to LA where they lost that game back in week 8. Sam Darnold looked bad for the first time all season and lost to the Lions. And
how are the Darnold heads doing, Katie?
Well, we are not excited that he held onto the ball for 25 seconds every snap and that every single one went 25 feet over where it was supposed to go. Why was he holding onto the ball so long and consistently? Like, why didn't they make that adjustment? I felt like I was going insane.
Was he seeing ghosts?
He's done that for most of the year, to be honest with you. But 31 of his attempts.
It wasn't that noticeable, though, I feel
31 of his attempts were held over 2.5 seconds, which is... It's pretty uncommon. His average time to throw was 3.18 seconds, which has to be the longest in the league this year. A lot of that is because Detroit's defense complicated the picture for him, and he didn't really know where to go. I also think the Vikings' entire team was playing tight, and I think it's good that they ended up in a situation like they did in Week 18 against Detroit with the number 1 seed in the line, because it felt like a pseudo playoff game. And this is a team that has a lot of pieces that have never been to the playoffs and needed that exposure.
Lando is not happy that someone's setting off fireworks.
Oh, nice. Lando.
Nice. Florida, baby. So, like, this is a team that's not used to being in the playoffs, and I think that was a good exposure to them of what, like, high-level football is. How does that carry over against the Rams? We'll see. The Rams are a tough team to figure out. Matthew Stafford is a tough quarterback to pin down this year. He's had good games, like that shootout win against the Bills. He's had bad games, like the next couple of games. And the way I see it as Sean goes to check on his dog is I think the Vikings win this game. I do. I think the Vikings win this game as Lando jumps in the bed in the room and Sean returns to his chair, for those of you listening on audio media. And I think that this is where the Rams season ends, but I do think that their defensive front will make it tough on the Vikings. and could kind of mess things up for the Vikings offense. But overall, I have enough confidence in the Vikings to bounce back and get a rematch with the Lions next week.
I
agree with everything you said. I didn't hear anything you said, but I agree with it all.
Although I don't think they would get a rematch because the 7 seed.
They're the 5 seed, yeah.
Yeah. So if they're the highest remaining, the lowest remaining seed, then they would play them.
Which they could be.
Yeah, they could. Unless the Commanders take down the Buccaneers.
Katie, what do you got? You got the Vikings as well.
Yep, I like the Vikings in this one.
I do too. I think the Rams have been playing good football lately, but I don't know. The Vikings have been too solid. I kept waiting for Sam Darnold to have that fall off, and he just never did. I mean,
until this week.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, it was a bad season
it.
finale. What a stinker. We were all like, this is the matchup we've been waiting for. It's so unfair that one of these teams has to be the 5 seed. It's like, actually, that's okay if the Vikings are the 5 seed because they stunk up the joint.
They were not as good as their record this year. Like, they were a very, very good team, but I don't think they were nearly as close to the Lions as their record indicated. Like, everyone had that game as a coin flip, and I just didn't necessarily feel that way. But I'm just so high on the Lions.
I thought it'd be a coin flip just because of how banged up the Lions are. But you're right. Look at what they've been able to do with a bare cupboard. It's amazing. I'll take the Vikings too, by the way.
They're strong in different areas, I think. I like the Lions have their weaknesses too. If everything's rolling offensively, then they'll be fine because they can put up points like crazy. But they're not. There's no perfect team in the NFL this year, and they're definitely not perfect. The Vikings are strong on offense. They've got an aggressive.
Maybe the Carolina Panthers. They just didn't happen to make the playoffs. But man, I'm sad we're done watching the Panthers.
I know. Bryce Young was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun on Sunday when I was on the sidelines at Raymond James Stadium, and when it wasn't going the Bucs way, you could hear the fans looking up at the scoreboard, and every time the Panthers would get in the red zone, you'd start to hear cheers, and you'd start to hear, "Come on, Panthers!" And it was a lot of fun. And in the locker room, I asked a couple of players, I'm just like, "Hey," I was like, "Be honest, were you guys scoreboard watching at all?" They're like, "No, I wasn't. Honest to God, I don't even who won that game. Did Atlanta end up winning?" I'm like, "Oh no, the Panthers ended up winning." They're like, "Huh? Well, crap." I was like, "Yeah, so it really doesn't. It did not matter what you guys did here." He's like, "Well, this was Payne Durham tight end." He's like, "Well, I'm glad we won anyway."
That's so
all right.
funny.
That's been a half-hour version of Nick's rapid reaction / our first round playoff predictions. Let's get into our fun little NFL game we were calling, because during Week 18, the Cleveland Browns took on the Baltimore Ravens, and in an act of self-sabotage and maybe sabotaging, their rivals down in Pittsburgh, I don't know, they started Bailey Zappi. Also, Bailey Zappi might have been their best option at quarterback for that game. Bailey Zappi, by the way, happened to be the 40th starting quarterback, 40th different starting quarterback since the Browns came back to life in 1999. Nick, I put the picture in the doc. Put a link to the picture in the doc if you want to pull that up. I'm not going to read off all 40 names, or should I?
No, you should.
Very quickly. I should.
I feel like you should.
I'm not going to say first names. I'm just going to say last names.
Do you want me to do first names for you?
You want to do it, man? Go for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's run this.
We are looking at the infamous Tim Couch jersey with the list, and this is a very manicured list. This guy took some time to put all these on there.
Somebody's grandma made these patches. I'll tell you that.
All
right. So we start with Tim Couch, and we proceed to Ty Detmer. Then we have Spurgeon Wynn, Doug Peterson. Yes, the same Doug Peterson who just got fired as Jaguars coach. He played quarterback for the Browns. Did you know that?
He did?
Yes, he didn't. I'll bet you didn't. Kelly Holcomb. Sean remembers Kelly Holcomb quite fondly because they got into a shootout in the 2002 AFC wildcard game against the Steelers. The Steelers won that game. Then you move on to the Jeff Garcia era. Game with a lot of pomp and circumstance. Also included a 0.0 passer rating game for Jeff Garcia. That failed. Luke McCown, Josh McCown's brother from Louisiana Tech. He played quarterback. Trent Dilfer. Charlie Fry, the inspiration for the famous Fry guys, or Charlie's Fries, excuse me, who used to go to Browns games dressed up in French fry costumes that said Charlie's Fries on them. He sucked. He played quarterback at Akron, and he was known for locking onto receivers. Derek Anderson led the Browns to an explosive 2007 season in which they narrowly missed the playoffs, finished 10-6. But because the Colts played Curtis Painter at quarterback, maybe Jim Sorgi, and willingly lost their Week 17 game against the Titans, the Browns missed the playoffs. Really because they lost.
We just need the names.
In Cincinnati. Ken Dorsey.
No, I kind of like this. I'm learning stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the history. Ken Dorsey, the recently fired Browns offensive coordinator, also was formerly the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. That's also on this list. Then you get Brady Quinn. What's funny about Anderson, Dorsey, and Quinn is they were all on the roster at the same time, and Dorsey only played in games that didn't matter. But Brady Quinn was drafted to be the hero, and he sucked. So that didn't work. Bruce Gradkowski, an old MAC hero. I think he played at Toledo. He played quarterback for the Browns. Colt McCoy, the old Texas star. He came in and tried to play for the Browns and got blasted in a Steelers game. It remains on one of the top big hit highlights from that era. Jake Delhomme came to the Browns as a free agent. He was notably not fast, not mobile, didn't last long. Seneca Wallace, who was mobile, who was fast, but was limited, talent-wise. He also played quarterback. The Browns spent a first-round pick on 27-year-old Brandon Weeden, I think he was. Might have been as old as 29 at that time. He famously got trapped under the American flag before his first start to open the season. Thad Lewis. Sir Thaddeus Lewis, the Duke product, the smart guy. He also played quarterback in that stretch of time. Jason Campbell, a veteran, spent a lot of his time in Washington. He played quarterback for the Browns. Brian Hoyer, inspiration for American Hoyer Story. He was fun for the Browns. He actually had them in playoff position when Kyle Shanahan was OC. But Johnny Manziel was on the roster. Yes, the same guy who ruined my 22nd birthday by getting drafted by the Browns on the same day I turned 22. He was there to blow everything up. Notably,
we were in downtown Kent. We were in downtown Kent, Ohio, and the streets emptied with Browns fans celebrating that they had found their Messiah. And then I, a Steelers fan, found two Bengals fans sitting at the bar. And we were like, these guys are going to suck still. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. And you remembered my face. I was very upset. Connor Shaw. I believe he played college football at South Carolina. He played quarterback for the Browns. Josh McCown, Luke's brother, the famous Josh McCown, who actually played fairly decently for the Browns, but also suffered a broken collarbone, which led to Austin Davis next on the list. He's the guy who played quarterback for the Browns in that Monday night game in which they had a field goal blocked and returned for a walk-off touchdown by the Ravens that I referenced on a previous Gridiron podcast episode. Then Hugh Jackson showed up, and he said the earth moved beneath his feet when he watched Robert Griffin III work out for them. And yes, Robert Griffin III played quarterback for the Browns. Not very well. Cody Kessler, the USC product. Hugh Jackson said, trust me, I know something about this guy. He also played quarterback for the Browns. Notre Dame product Deshaun Kaiser showed up and showed that he was not equipped to play in the NFL. And then you go on to Kevin Hogan, the Stanford product. Almost forgot his first name. He sucked. Then you get Tyrod or Tyrod, depending on whether you're talking to his mother or not. Tyrod Taylor played quarterback, and then the Baker Mayfield era began. And Baker was pretty good, but then he played hurt and kind of sucked and wasn't good enough. But he did lead the Browns to a playoff win over the Steelers, and he also led them to the AFC divisional round where they lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Chiefs that season. That was the 2020 season. Case Keenum showed up as his backup and played a little bit for the Browns when Baker was hurt. Nick Mullins, the guy who once found success with the San Francisco 49ers, the Southern Miss product who broke Brett Favre's records. He also played quarterback for the Browns. And by then we're in 2022 and it's Jacoby Brissett time because Deshaun Watson was suspended when he became a Brown. Jacoby, a fan favorite, a locker room favorite, handled the job pretty well. Master of quarterback sneaks. No longer plays for the Browns. He plays for the Patriots. He did a decent job there. Deshaun Watson's patch is covered up by, what is that? The flag.
It is a sexual assault awareness flag.
There you go. And that is in good taste by
which
the
I highly respect from this man.
Yes, of course.
Somebody
the Jersey man, not the Deshaun Watson man. There's no respect for him.
The Jersey man, yes.
Indeed. I don't think you need to specify that.
That's also confirmation that somebody's grandma definitely made these patches. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who we had the privilege of seeing this year, shows up on the list next. The UCLA product. Didn't do well. He did not do well. And then we had PJ Walker, a backup and an XFL star, formerly known as Phillip. He's on the list as well before Joe Flacco came in and just entertained the masses. Found that last little bit of the fountain of youth, threw the Browns to the playoffs, became the first Browns quarterback to throw for 300-plus yards in 4 straight games. And then there was Jeff Driscoll in week 18 of that season, which was last season. Yes, Jeff Driscoll, the same guy who played college football at Florida and also made a start for the Bengals. And then we moved to 2024, and we have Jameis Winston, who made things interesting for the Browns. They beat the Steelers in a snow game with Jameis at quarterback, but the Browns were in tankathon mode. They couldn't keep Jameis in. Oh, he throws too many interceptions. Yeah, he almost threw for 500 yards against the Broncos, but he throws too many picks. And that's what led us to DTR. And finally, the last name on this jersey, Bailey Zap Daddy Zappy.
So we have the complete list and background of all 40 starting quarterbacks in the revived Cleveland Browns history. So the question I pose to you guys is, and Katie, this is especially for you, who is the most, no, keep that list up, Nick. Keep the list up, please.
No,
who is the most
I'm going to show photos.
WTF, like That guy? Oh yeah, he played like who is the most just forgettable of these names? Like that you had no idea he played for them. Can't believe he played for them. Just I don't know, take this however you want. Nick, I guess we'll start with you because you lived through all of this.
Well, I did live through all of this, starting from the age of 7. And I'll tell you what, my favorite guy on this list, I'm taking the list away just for a moment because I got to show you a picture. He's a guy that you probably won't remember, and rightfully so. His name is Spurgeon Wynn. There he is, playing against the Packers. I have no recollection of his performance in the NFL, but I do know that he played quarterback for the Browns for at least a brief period. That's all I have to say. Spurgeon Wynn. That's the guy you pull out of left field when you're just naming former random athletes.
When you're sitting around at the bar, just naming random dudes. Spurgeon
draft day, the old game, draft day, Spurgeon Wynn, draft day, Ty Detmer, go on, so on and so forth. All right, Katie, back to you. You choose your favorite.
Okay, we need the list up again. I thought I was present for the whole time, but maybe I disassociated for one moment. Is that guy's last name Dilfer?
Yes, that is Trent Dilfer.
It's a terrific last name. That one for the comedic value of the name, but I didn't know Doug Peterson was a quarterback for the Browns. I learned something today.
And we're going to show you a picture of Doug Peterson right now.
I feel like Doug Peterson is, yes, a very like he was a Brown.
Yeah.
There you go. There's Dougie.
Whoa. That's a trip.
Right?
It's so weird seeing with him without his little visor.
Right?
And his gray hair. Nick, I feel like you could show that picture to anybody and just say, oh yeah, that's Charlie Fry. Oh yeah, that's Jake Delhomme.
Yeah, who is this
that's
quarterback?
just you could
that's
just
where
say,
I win trivia. They're like,
exactly.
Who is this? Name this Browns quarterback. And I'm like, Doug Peterson.
Just show it to anybody. Like, oh wait, is that Colt McCoy? For me, it can't be Johnny Manziel because like he was too famous, right? For other reasons. Going into this, I wanted to say Charlie Fry because like that's who I remember growing up. I remember Charlie Fry. I love that both McCown brothers played for the Browns. It can't be Brian Hoyer because he was actually pretty successful with the Browns. But who is like the most WTF? I think I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with Brandon Weeden. I think I'm going to go with Brandon Weeden because you're right. He was a 29-year-old quarterback coming out of college because he played professional baseball for a while before going back to school at Oklahoma State to play football. And I'm just like, that time was so weird. That's where this like Browns jersey thing really started because you really started to stack up the quarterbacks at that point of your franchise's history. So I'm going to go with Brandon Weeden, the most WTF quarterback in Browns revived history. Yep, there he is, getting stuck under the old stars and stripes.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Had a nice collegiate career at Oklahoma State.
He did. I was actually, you know what? I actually thought about Brandon Weeden today because I was thinking about Notre Dame in the national championship, and I'm like, Notre Dame and Manti Te'o robbed Brandon Weeden and Oklahoma State of facing off against Alabama in that national title game.
It would have been a bludgeoning just like it was against Notre Dame.
It would have been more fun. Like Notre Dame had nothing. They had beaten crappy teams all year and went undefeated. All right, that's our fun NFL game this year. How about we switch gears? Nick and Katie over to F1 because it's a new year officially. And how things work in Formula One is when it's a new year, that's when like team deals go through and everything. So we have a bunch of new drivers switching to new teams. We have new Twitter profiles where Lewis Hamilton says he's a Ferrari driver now, and Kimi Antonelli says he's a Mercedes driver, and Carlos Sainz
40 today.
He did. He just turned 40 today. Happy birthday to Sir Lewis Hamilton. Pierre Gasly got a haircut. I don't know if you saw that. The locks are gone. Yeah.
Can't relate.
It actually kind of looks a little bit like you, Nick. He did like a high and tight. It's
hell yeah,
pretty close to a buzz cut. Yeah.
Thanks. I feel better about myself right now.
But with it being a new year, I figured we come up with New Year's resolutions, right? You know, we all go to the gym for 2 weeks and then give up. But you're going to be different. It's okay. Don't worry about what I just said. So let's come up with some New Year's resolutions for our favorite drivers and or teams. This doesn't have to be all 20 drivers or all 10 teams. This is just off the cuff. Let's have some fun here. What do we think the drivers or teams resolution should be? Who wants to go first?
Well, chivalry is not dead, so Miss Katie Caldwell.
My New Year's resolution is for McLaren as a whole team, every single person in that building. So you can lose to others. That's okay. That's going to happen. But please stop losing to yourself. I know you guys won the Constructors' Championship, but good God, they easily could have won the Drivers' too. And they pissed that right down the drain because Lando Norris doesn't always know how to get out of turn one when he starts on pole position. So just like, do what you can to not lose to yourself, McLaren. Because the
Don't lose
potential's
to your
there.
writing it down.
You have
Don't
two rocket
lose
ships
to yourself.
driving.
Got it.
As someone that loses to themselves all the time, game recognizes game. I see what you guys are doing. I'm doing the same thing.
I'll go next. My New Year's resolution is for our reigning champion, Max Verstappen. His New Year's resolution should be to stop yeeting his car into every driver on the grid. I feel like that's
fair.
fairly simple, right?
That's simple. Yeah.
Just
That's
don't,
concise.
cause collision after collision after collision after
I kind
collision
of love it.
after collision. Nick, what's your New Year's resolution?
My New
Who's
Year's
it for?
resolution stays with the old team with the bulls on the car. We're not talking about V-Carb, although he has a part in it.
I was about to say the RB has bulls on the car.
We're talking about Red Bull Racing, and we are talking about the guy who puts his foot in his mouth more than anybody else on the grid. Helmut Marko, your New
Knew
Year's resolution, shut the hell up for once. Just shut up.
Indefinitely.
Bite your tongue.
I feel like his New Year's resolution should just be Helmut Marko. Stop it. Stop it.
Stay out of the cat box.
Stay out of the cat box. He
Just
does
stop
put
it.
he does put his Austrian foot into his mouth very often, saying some very off-color things too, which is just
Very.
kind of like, hey man, you're of that generation where you probably shouldn't be saying the things you're saying. Maybe it's time to put grandpa in a home.
Guys, we need to have a talk about Peepaw. I don't think he's well. We need to put him
You saying weird things about Mexican drivers?
He's saying weird things about Mexican drivers again. We need to have a talk with Helmut.
Sure, grandpa. Sure.
Sure, Grandpa. Let's get you into Congress.
Does anybody have his Alka-Seltzer for his teeth? Anybody? His Everdent or whatever it's called?
Polydent.
Polydent. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Clean the dentures.
I'll go again. My going off of Katie's, I think my next resolution is for Lando Norris. Bro, whether I don't care if you're doing a go-kart, F1 video game, F1 simulator, I don't care what it is. Maybe practice some starts from pole position once in a while. Practice does make perfect, and you sucked from pole this
Why,
season.
Sean? What happened?
He had more poles, I think, than anybody else this season, and he, I don't think, ever finished. Did he?
One
Singapore.
time.
One time.
Singapore,
One
right?
time.
Singapore. He finished one lap from pole position in first place in Singapore, in which he did win that race wire to wire. Yes, that was probably his best race of the season. But for all the pole positions, he couldn't make it one lap with the lead. Usually couldn't even make it one or two corners. So, Lando, buddy, practice your starts from pole.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one. I'd like to see George Russell become more British.
Oh,
How's that possible?
Because I feel like with every race, he gets a little more British with all the shit he says on the radio. And as he ages, I think it's only going to get a little more wild. This year's going to be spicy with number one boy Kimmy coming in. And then George Russell still being the number two driver.
I give that idea 5 yabba dabba doos.
Oh, sugar.
What was?
I love George Russell.
Didn't he say kerfuffle at some point or something?
Yes,
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
I have to go through my notes. I have a running list of George Russell isms, and they are just so funny. He feels like he is Helmut Marko's age, but less problematic.
yeah. He's like the nice side of being old.
He is like the perfect, like British aristocratic gentleman. Oh, fiddlesticks.
Oh,
Oh,
fudge.
fiddlesticks.
I have one for Formula One at large for Liberty Media. stop Americanizing your American races. We don't need pyrotechnics and driver introductions. I don't need any of that. Stop making these drivers feel uncomfortable and just stick to what you do. Do it like you do it everywhere else. That's what people are here for. They're not here to be catered to because you're in America. That's it. Be who you are.
I've got
I
one
love
for
self-aware Americans. This is so refreshing.
I
Go
think
ahead.
the Miami intros, that's all cringe and stuff. I kind of like the Texas. Like, if you're gonna do it for Texas because that is
Yes.
the U.S. Grand Prix. Like, go extra American for the
Mhm.
U.S. Grand Prix. You don't need the driver intros for Miami Vegas is kind of cool because that is like the show capital. But like, make the America of F1 the U.S. Grand Prix. I've got a resolution for Yuki Tsunoda. And apparently, obviously he got passed up on for the Red Bull seat. He's kind of languishing there at VCAR, Racing Bulls, whatever they want to call themselves now. Bro, Yuki, your resolution should be give no Fs next year. Give 0 Fs. You want to cuss on the radio? Cuss on the radio. You want to yeet yourself into your teammate? Have at it. Red Bull's not going to back you any longer. Okay, you don't got those Honda bucks anymore. Give no Fs, Yuki Tsunoda. Be an agent of chaos. I want to see that.
We love an agent of chaos. We know Katie does.
I sign off on that with my entire being. Every single word of it. No notes.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Yeet into whoever you want. You do.
Any other
Yuki.
resolutions,
You've earned
folks?
I just really hope that, because earlier in the season I said I think that Williams eventually will have something cooking. I hope that next year we start to see it come to fruition. I love Albon, but I really want to see Carlos do well. It's so tough watching him step away from Ferrari and not into a team that is a McLaren or like, you're going to Williams, bro. Like, that's a really, really tough step down where they're fighting to be in the midfield. So they made a lot of big changes this year, and I hope this season we start to see it with them. Because I still have this gut feeling that Williams is going to do some stuff. I just don't know when. And you've got Alex and Carlos, so you've got a really good driver's lineup. I believe in them. I just hope we start to see it soon.
Yeah,
So
maybe this is the
Williams-
year that the money pays off. Who knows?
Williams' resolution is just the meme of the stick figure poking a stick saying, do something.
Do something.
Oh, that and stop crashing your cars so much, please.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
get
they don't
these
have low
mechanics
cars.
to break.
Yeah. You know what? I got one more. To Lance Stroll, your New Year's resolution should just be just stop being the worst. It's like just stop being the worst. Not like the worst driver, just like the worst. Just stop being the worst. That's
In every facet.
yeah. Just stop
That's
being
my
the
message,
worst.
but to his dad.
Stop having the worst haircut. Stop having the worst excuses. Stop having the worst peripheral vision. Just stop being the worst. Okay.
Haircut.
Haircut? I think his hair's fine.
He's got like the Mark Davis style haircut almost.
Which
No.
works great for me. I love a Mark Davis haircut.
That's really what
That's
gets Katie
hot.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
On her
provocative.
profile, must have
Canadian Queen going.
Curtin Valance haircut over the forehead, please. I would like a whole just clean bowl right there.
Few things get me going like a good bowl cut. That's just something.
This
to
has
know
been
about me as a
episode
person.
58 of the Gridiron Podcast, our New Year's episode. We covered the NFL, not Super Wild Card Weekend, our RIP Super Wild Card Weekend. We covered the Browns' recent, very extenuous quarterback circumstances. And then it's fun talking about Formula One New Year's resolutions for our favorite drivers and teams. For Nick Shook and Katie Caldwell, I'm Sean Barie. And as always, click, subscribe, like, listen, share with your friends. And if you would like to get in contact with us, best way to do that, other than social media, is by emailing us at the Gridiron Podcast 3. That is the Gridiron Podcast number 3. Damn those other two. At gmail.com. We love to hear from you. We frequently do, and we love your messages of encouragement. No one's really like said anything mean yet, so don't do that. But if you do,
Or dial it up.
yeah,
Ooh,
if you
shouters.
do, really lay into us. I don't care.
No, all I have to do is check my Instagram DM requests.
Same.
Next week
Yeah.
on the Gridiron Podcast.
inside Katie Caldwell's DMs.
How many times has someone asked for feet pics? Is it 10, 20, 100? We'll find out.
John, it's a dark place in there. It's a weird place within that folder. We try not to check it. But yeah, the feedback isn't always 100%.
Or the
But in the
feedback.
email, is it?
Feedback.
The feedback.
Bam! Got him.
Katie really stepped into that one.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you
Way
guys
to
are
toe the
fire
line.
tonight.
For Nick Shook and Katie Caldwell, I'm Sean Barie. Thanks so much for listening to episode 58 of the Gridiron Podcast. We'll be back same time next week talking about the NFL divisional round. Until then, as always, live life in the fast lane.
And I forgot one quarterback who didn't start but played for the Browns, Charlie Whitehurst. Good night, clipboard Jesus.
Good night, Canada.
Good night, Charlie Whitehorse. I don't know.